Welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone's been enjoying the One Piece card game. I know I have. Today's video will feature the Supernova / Land of Wano deck. It is one of the top decks of this format alongside Kaido. Kaido leans on the more aggressive side. This deck leans more on the defensive side, but with a fair amount of aggression. So I like this deck a little bit better than the Kaido one just because it is more consistent with their searcher off of Kozuki Momonosuke and Bonnie, as well as this leader is actually much better than the Kaido leader. For Kaido, I almost never use this effect. It's very situational. To -7 Dawn is devastating. You would have to go for game. Meanwhile, Kid, for a 3 cost, you can trash 1 card and set this leader as active. He has won me many games just because late game, he is essentially 2 large attacks. So even if your characters are popped, removed, what have you, you still have 2 attacks with your leader, one of the best cards of the game. So let's get right into the deck. We have 2 8-cost Captain Kids. So if you don't know what he does, he essentially redirects all attacks to himself. When he does come out, you basically spend a turn just throwing him out because he will take 9 Dawns to redirect all attacks. And be careful how you play him because when you do play him, remember, you got to commit to defending him. So all the cards in hand, when your opponents are swinging, you are going to pump him up so that he survives, right? You do want to protect him with a bunch of little blockers onto the side, but don't do too many in case they do something like a 10-cost Kaido, but those are very situational. But because he is an 8-cost, he is outside the range of most destruction cards. Actually, all destruction cards currently, because except for the 10-cost Kaido. But red players do use stuff like what's her name, Otama, to reduce his 8,000 to 6,000, and then that is within the range of Jet Pistol, so do be careful with those. But I'm only running 2 because he is very situational and kind of awkward to have really late into the game. You do want to throw him out as soon as you can while your opponent is still trying to set up their attacks, and that is where you can buy the most time. So only 2. Now I have these Eustace Captain Kid, which I prefer a lot more just because he's a blocker, and then you can attack with him, put 1 Dawn underneath, attack 8,000 when you put the Dawn underneath, and then restand him so you can use him as a blocker. So he's an attacker and a blocker, which is incredibly good, and especially at that power. Now, the reason I don't want to max this out is just because against decks like blue, this can get not very useful just because blue can actually hit the 7 cost to bounce back to hand or send to the bottom of the deck. So, but this card, along with Paradise Waterfall, you can essentially block multiple times per turn with just 1 copy and only for 1 cost. So a very good defender. All right, next we have another blocker. We have 4 Trafalgar Laws. This law is a blocker, 5 costs. On play, you may return 1 character from your hand to your hand and then play 1 character with a cost of 3 or less. So you can use him to recycle some effects, especially Killer. Now, you don't have to run this one at 4. I know it's actually getting kind of expensive, but you actually don't need this at 4. He is not really what you need to protect this. You want to use the smaller blockers or, him. But I really like the effect to recycle a card, so I play it at 4. So if I go against like a Zoro deck or something, I can bounce back the Killer, replay the Killer, and pop another thing because your opponent will be going for the aggression, and then he will be, protecting you as well as, getting that extra kill with the Killer stuff. Or you can pop something once you use it, so like Bonnie or Momonosuke, pop it so they don't actually end up as attack, and then you can use it to play again and then leave it as unsuspended. All right, next we have 3 Drakes. I actually really like this Drake just because he comes out and then he pops a rested character with a cost of 4 or less. This is actually especially devastating against Doflamingo, where all their stuff comes out at is exactly 4 or less and comes out at rested. And then he's also a good attacker, right? So 6,000. But that's why I only play it at 3. It's kind of situational. It depends on, it really is better for the mid game and not so much late game, right? Because late game, they're really not putting out any of their 4 costs or anything. They're putting out their bigger attackers. So really mid game kind of control card. All right, next we have 3 Okiku. I would like to play 4 Okiko. 3 Okiku just because she is a 3 cost, so she can actually be played off of Trafalgar Law, you can bounce like something like your Bonnie or your Mononosuke after using it, and then play Okiku. I only play Okiku at 3 because she has no shield, but she is a very good, she is very strong, and she can rest a character with a cost of 5 or less. That's essentially almost every large blocker, like the queens, their boas, etc. Or other, Trafalgar Laws. So she can actually put in some real work. I play 4 of these killers. Sometimes it's really helpful for the trigger effect to on play and then kill something. So especially against Zoro, if they trigger into this, you can actually just call this, have a body, and kill the Zoro. But it kills other stuff too, as long as the 3 costs rest a character when it comes out. But sometimes I do also just play it and then recycle its effect by using the law, which is why I maxed that law out at 4. This is really just for those faster paced decks, and you really do need to slow it down because you don't want to take too much damage early. You need to set up your defenses, and your defenses are higher cost, so you do need to buy some time. I got 4 Izos. Izo, Land of Wano, so it's searchable by Mononosuke. It's also a 2 cost, and because it's a 3 cost or less, you can play it off of the law. So when on play, you rest one of your opponent's character with a cost of 4 or less. You can rest one of their attackers, you can rest one of their defenders, and then if you had the memory, you can also then drop the Drake to pop it. Really good card. Next, we have 4 killer blockers. He's just a small blocker. Can use it to protect your big 8-cost kid or, essentially anything. But best part is, if you definitely don't have the cards that you need, you can put a Don underneath, and if you have 3 more characters and you have a bunch of little characters, so you could probably afford it, then you get to draw a card on block. So you can sacrifice him and then draw a card. We got 4 Apus. I have never actually just hard played an Apu. He's really just here for the 2000. But if you absolutely need to for some reason, like if you see that a Kaido deck has a 1 Don open and they're going to, or they're going to leave their hand open for like a Blast Breath or something, and Kaido decks basically use up all their Don and then sometimes leave just 1 open for the Blast Breath for the 4K. You could, throw it out a turn earlier and then make them reconsider. Maybe they have to pop this, etc., or they won't be able to get their Blast Breath off. But I've never actually done that. I've seen people do it. He's in here just because he is searchable by Supernova and then 2K. All right, next we have Nekomamushi, Cat Viper, right? Basically the same as Izo, except rest a character with a cost of 3 or less. It really doesn't matter too much because you really are using both of them to rest small cards. He is cheaper to play, but he also has less defensive hand. But he is still really good. All right, next we have your Searcher card. These are essentially the same thing. 4 Mononosuke and 4 Bonnie. Bonnie will search a Supernova, and Mononosuke will search a Land of Wano. That's why this deck is super consistent, because you have all these 1 cost that can search cards. Next, we have 4 Beige. Small blocker, that's it. You throw it out, protect your bigger stuff, protect yourself, etc. Again, this deck is incredibly defensive. All right, and then finally we have my favorite event card of this game, right? So you Paradise Waterfall, your leader or one of your characters getting 2,000. Then the best part is set one of your characters as active. So you have all these large blockers. So you have the Eustace Captain Kidd, you have the Trafalgar Law. You can block with an attack with Captain Kidd or Law, and then use this depending on where they strike, maybe the Kid itself or maybe your leader. So block, give it 2K, and then restand one of your large blockers that didn't die from the first attack, and then block again because this is then set as active. So for essentially a 1 cost, it could potentially protect you up to 3 attacks, right? Which is amazing. And then it also has a really good trigger effect to KO one of your opponent's rested character with a cost of 4 or less if you need it. So 4 costs or less is actually, it's actually pretty big. And if it's triggered early enough in the game where you don't actually need this card in hand, then yeah, kill something. Kill whatever just dealt you the damage, right? So control the board a little bit. Best part, Land of Wano. it's searchable by Mononosuke, so you can grab those. Some edits you can change. Like I said, you don't really need this law at 4. I might cut it back down to 2, just because I don't find myself throwing out this law as often. I might throw in the other 5-cost law from the start of that restands, or I might toss in some Drakes. So those are more aggressive cards. The thing about that is I don't believe the starter deck law can actually restand the Land of Wano. I believe it has to be a Supernova, and there aren't too many Supernova early game that I want to swing with. So other than, I think, Drake, everything else is, you know, very small, and then it also does not restand these, which is why I think I will actually toss in the Drakes instead of playing 4 Trafalgar Laws. Just because sometimes in hand, they do get clogged up in hand and they don't have shield, and they're not always ideal to bounce. It does depend on the matchup. Let me know what you guys think of the deck profile, any suggestions you guys would make. Thanks for watching.